off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News, CNBC News, NBC Sports Radio Station, AM 1050, FM 106.5, the station that leaves no listener behind, home to the Asian Oprah, number one talk in the IE, thank you very much, and streaming everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. So if you're looking for the headlines, you will not find them here. You'll only find heartlines, because all of the news is negative out there now. I used to say most, I will say all, because there's just nothing to smile or laugh about in the headlines. Instead, your most natural reaction will be, what's wrong with people? Or the world is certainly going to HE double hockey stick, opposite of heaven. So what I do here is balance out all that bad news with good news, good people, and good series. Today, as you can see from the good-looking guy on camera on my platform this morning, is the fabulous James Hawthorn, which means it's time for Straight Talk with myself and
James Hawthorn. Good morning, everybody.
He's a trainer, actor, film, I almost said distributor, but well, I guess that would have been part of it. Film festival founder. And he is always offering himself up on a platter for your training or dating purposes.
Yes, this is true.
Welcome back to the show, James Hawthorn. Always good.
Thank you.
We're going to start catching up with each other using breakfast. Y'all know the drill. First thing every show, we have a bite of my gratitude sandwich, top of the bun, things that you're grateful for, and outside of yourself, and then bottom of the bun, because I like it on the bottom, even though I'm beginning to think that I'm not going to like it anywhere because it's been so long. But anyways, TMI. It is Friday, so I can get a little naughty. Bottom of the bun is weight training for your own ability to self-care, self-love, self-approve, self-soothe instead of numbing out. And that's why we do this. And want you to do it before you go to bed tonight, but we're going to model it because we're not going to be there before you go to bed tonight. At least I'm not. I don't know about James, but that's the exercise or the good life habit, #Blisscipline, that we go through every top of the show. So what are you grateful for, James?
I'll start with a really good high school friend of mine who truly has my back. He's also a client of mine, and he runs a very successful digital media consulting company. And he truly has my back, looking for opportunities for me to be involved with his company and his organization. And what sets him apart is just the way that he is so loyal and loving to all of the people in his orbit, including employees. And I really felt that the other day. And we'll get to it when we get to the topic, but a good heart-to-heart I had with him inspired my idea for the topic today. So that's my first one.
Awesome. I am grateful that after the show today, I get to drive 2 hours and 22 minutes to Hanover, Ontario, where my girlfriend that I literally grew up with, and we won a whole bunch of Kiwanis piano festivals, partially because we were one of the very few doing duets. But we still have a lot of gold and silver and bronze ribbons that I remember so well and so lovingly. And we get to connect after 3 decades. I mean, I've seen her once in a while here and there, but it'll be nice to go up to her beautiful cottage and spend a night there doing one of the things that I really wanted to do I thought I put a do not disturb on this. But what I really wanted to do, spending a little more time after my mom's service, is connecting and also doing a little work. But yeah, that'll be the drive. Her name is Karen, and my name I grew up with was Maria. So we were known as Mar and Car. So I'm grateful.
Mar.
That's right. What are you grateful for?
It's all people today. Another great friend that I've had for 15 years since I moved here. He is hairstylist extraordinaire, Anthony Pazos, hairstylist to the stars. And he's kind enough on a trade arrangement my hair was all fluffy and puffy, and I got to do a headshot session today. My team is begging me to get new ones. It's been a long time. And he was nice enough to give me a nice clean up, neat up. You can't tell because I haven't had a chance to jump in the shower yet today, but I am looking photo ready, and he did it for the low price of trade. So I'm gonna train him, make him sweat, and he's gonna make me look good. So very thankful for him willing to do that.
Awesome. I am grateful. I'll be speaking this Sunday at the Universal Center for Joy here in Toronto, formerly known as the Center for Spiritual Living. And I am grateful that I get to not only, the topic is, are you 88% happy? Which of course is part of I don't have it here, my book, 8 Ways to Happiness tour continues. Even though I have 2 blood clots, I am continuing here. And I also get to sing. So I'm the musical inspiration on top of the speaker. So I'm doing triple duty with the signing.
Love it.
One more.
A third person, the guy taking my headshots, has been a friend that I've had for 10 years. And for the longest time, he's offered to shoot me for free. And I've always wanted to do that with him. His name is, I'm going to plug him because it's so generous what he's doing. His name is Arthur Marroquin of ABM Photography. Arthur Brian Marroquin, ABM Photography. He is an extraordinary photographer, successful business here in LA and Austin, Texas. Does 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, back and forth, shooting people left, right, and center. And as busy and successful as he's gotten, he's still carving out time to help me finally shoot with him after years and years and years. Because when I've had to get headshots in the past, my rep team would be like, no, go with this photographer, go with that photographer. And finally, they're like, just get new headshots. And so now I get to pick. And of course, I picked my buddy Arthur. So big shout out to the double A's in my life. Arthur, Brian Marroquin for the headshots, and Anthony Pazos for the hairstyling. So without them, couldn't make it happen. So they're the best. I am so grateful for loving friends that are generous and truly have my back. That's such a special thing, and I don't take it for granted.
Awesome. Well, I am grateful that not only do I get to do the singing, speaking, but I'm doing stand-up again. I got up on stage yesterday at the longest running comedy mic in Toronto. I thought it was Yuck Yucks, but it's actually the Groove Bar and Grill restaurant. And I got up there, and not only was it so fun, great audience, I met a headliner who headlines at Yuck Yuck, and guess who's going to be back? Not this weekend, but the next weekend, and not as an amateur, but as a pro. So I am super grateful for that. And I'm going to try to bring him on the show too, because he's very funny. And he is one of those comics, there's comics that use the common F denominator, to make people laugh, or the R denominator, which stands for raunchy. He actually is kind of like the best kind of comics I know. They take situations that we all identify with and find the funny humor. So he was amazing. And I will get his name after we do this, because I have great memory, but my recall sucks. But I'm so delighted. And another one of the comics recognized me because of the book. So she's an indie bookstore person. So we're going to set up a book signing while I'm here as well. So I just love the way that my life is, what are the chances of that? I go and do one thing and I end up satisfying some desires that I, put down on the way. And I just love that about my life. So no blood clot's going to keep me down. Ha ha.
I love it.
And that's it for breakfast. Oh no, bottom of the bun. What do you like about yourself? So you're not constantly looking for external approval. This is why we do the bottom. And I know that a lot of us grew up with well-meaning, more mean than well parents or teachers who said, don't toot your own horn, you're not all that, don't be so big. And as a result, we don't know what we're good at, or we can't celebrate, especially women. Yesterday, someone paid me a compliment on something and I poo-pooed it away because that's, my normal, uncomfortable with being positively recognized. I know you're surprised at that, but every once in a while I slip and wasn't very gracious with the compliment. So this will help us really recognize what we are good at, what we like about ourselves, so we're not looking for, love in all the wrong places or how many people like us literally on social media these days. So, James, what do you like about yourself?
This is from last night's softball game. I like my ability when I deal with conflict with another person to really look at it objectively and know what is coming from maybe me and my actions versus what is more a reflection of that person and their emotional state. A simple way to put it, and I'm going to go so far as to say that this is fact, not opinion.
Okay.
You are responsible for your actions, but you are not responsible for how other people feel. That's on them. That's the way they're wired in their program. So as long as you're acting in a way that you can look yourself in the mirror with and say, you know what, I stand by that, then no matter what happens between the two of you, it's important to remember that so that if they get you emotionally riled up, you can at least find that objectivity and say, okay, what did I actually do? And am I okay with that? Or did I act in a way that I'm not so proud of? And I did what I had to do as the manager of the team. He didn't like it, but he said some things that would have made me, want to get up in his business. But I just let him blow off some steam. And I got back to focusing on the game because I said, you know what? That's him. That's not me. I did the right thing for the team, the other team members. It was fair, it was equitable, and it gave us the best chance to win. And it's just a rec league softball team, so the details don't matter. But I think that I'm able to handle conflict in that way most of the time. Now, the caveat to that is it's much harder when it's somebody that is like your best friend or that you are intimately, romantically involved with. But just because your emotions are more intertwined with them, it doesn't mean that you can't practice that acknowledgement that you are responsible for your actions, but not the other person's feelings.
Well said. Well, totally agree. And it is. Wouldn't it be great if we all gave each other the break and said, you are not responsible for my happiness, and I'm responsible for my happiness, and anything that you're saying is all a reflection of where you are and nothing to do with me. It's a hard take because we were raised to say, people say, if you love me, you would, right? That's saying, and parents will say, why are you doing this? It just makes me so mad. Well, you're making yourself mad. That person's doing something that they need to do, but it's a hard sell. But I absolutely agree with you. It's 100% the formula behind personal mastery. If you can monitor, nobody can make you mad. They can say some things to push your button. It is your choice whether or not to get mad at it. So
yeah, I think that's a very important line to distinguish. I do think it's okay to tell people, hey, when you do this, it bothers me or it makes me feel this way. I think it's important to communicate that to people. But then once you've said that, you have to then take control of your emotions and say, well, okay, they really got me all upset about that, but I'm not going to carry that with me. I'm going to handle my emotions in a way that lets me get back to being joyful. There's an expression I like. It's don't let anyone steal your joy. Someone might upset you in the moment. That's part of being human. That's human interaction. But your joy is kind of the heartbeat, your baseline. And just because someone upsets you in the moment doesn't mean that has to, affect your minute to minute, well, not minute to minute, but your daily baseline of happiness.
Absolutely. So I will say that I appreciate my ability to minimize need, which will guarantee that if you do have a knee-jerk reaction, you're the one that's going to look like a jerk. That's one of my Marissa-isms that I love and am known for, and I try to practice that 88% of the time. So yeah. All right, that's it for breakfast. Thanks for joining us. I'm, always encouraging you to do this for 21 or 28 or 30 days, whatever you think makes a good life habit. Time-wise, you can join me every weekday morning, whether or not I'm broadcasting live from Canada or not. You know that I'm always going to start with breakfast so that we learn how to sandwich our day in the most positive way. Thanks for joining us for breakfast. And now for the topic of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Just to echo your announcer voice, we're going to talk about vulnerability today, and we're going to approach it from a lot of different angles. We're going to look at the courage that it takes to be vulnerable, challenges that we face with being vulnerable, why maybe we aren't as vulnerable as we could or should be, and whether vulnerability in romantic relationships is an attribute or a pitfall.
All right. That's the V word. It used to be banished like my P word. Patience and vulnerability, I thought were overrated. And I know that James did pick this for his own personal reasons, which is great because that's what we do on the show. We make it real. That's why it's called Straight Talk, even though both of my co-hosts are not straight, which is kind of ironic, and I love it. But yeah, so the first half of the show, we've got another 13 minutes is to be real about our experiences with being vulnerable. And then the second half of the show, we will talk about solution. So that's been the format of the show. So I will let James take it away. Why did you pick this topic?
So during the gratitude breakfast, the first person I talked about was my high school friend who is also a client. And, I've worked with him over the years with his company. And he is in the process of trying to bring me into different things, but he's got so much on his plate right now. 4 kids, he's signing a huge equity deal. He's got so much that's higher priority. And I'm thinking, all right, it's not going to happen. It's going to be months down the line. And in a way, I kind of lost the faith. And we had a long talk about it. And we talked about, it all came back to this idea of vulnerability. And I learned through that conversation with him that I wasn't even aware of this consciously. I think subconsciously over 15 years in LA, dealing with a ton of bullshit-talky from, people in the acting industry and being fully freelance and people flaking on dates and getting together. Even though I am an outwardly positive person, I think that there are some subconscious scars and scabs that have accrued over my 15 years living the freelance hustle and life. And I have issues, I think, with real trust. I always will trust somebody until they burn me, but there's a difference between trusting someone till they burn you and then being emotionally available to let them into your heart. And I had lost the faith temporarily in my dear friend from high school who has always had my back. And he kind of picked up on that, was a little hurt by it. And he talked about his journey with trust and vulnerability. He recently did this retreat. It's called the Hoffman Retreat, and you go there. A lot of celebrities have done it too, and you figure out what patterns in your life are not serving you and are destructive, and you do pre-work before you show up at this workshop and seminar, and you try to figure out maybe where they came from, and then you go and you do the work there to really get back to finding out who you are authentically and giving that part of yourself that hasn't been allowed to express itself license to do so. And it's really a journey in self-love. And he is a different person having gone through this, and he's so good because he's known me for so long at kind of calling me out on my stuff too. And in speaking with him, I just had this profound realization that even though I'm outwardly positive, that I am an open book, that I'm authentic, I am all those things, but I don't think that I am truly vulnerable because I've been carrying all these scars for so long. I don't think about them because I'm a positive person. I'm a can-do, focus on getting it done person. But there's stuff there that I need to uncover, unpack, pat on the back, heal, so that the full version of James, including his open heart, can show up. And I suspect, I don't know, I have to do more reflection and work on this. I think that might be the reason why I've never really had a relationship last more than 6 months, why I haven't found Mr. Right. Maybe it's contributing to why I'm, so picky. I think I don't fully let people in because I don't want to lose control of my emotions. I don't want to give people the power to break my heart. But I think that you have to do that in order to create the possibility, the fertile soil for a loving, fully connected relationship to blossom. That's my working theory. And I think it's something that I need to work on. So that's what inspired this choice of topic today.
Interesting. Yeah, it's something that we maybe like tangentially address. You're not being vulnerable, or you're being too sensitive, therefore overly vulnerable. But to actually look at it as a topic, I think is a great thing. And I, like you, I think my underlying BS belief system from being hurt physically, emotionally, mentally, physically, as a child, one of the 7 out of 10 of us who've had childhood trauma, there is an underlying BS belief system that if you fully allow someone to know all of you, your insecurities, your flaws, foilables is what I was looking for, then that person's going to use that information to extort you or hurt you. And as I'm speaking, I remember a time where I was leaning out over the balcony of my new place in Hermosa Beach, and I heard my neighbors talking together about me. And that had a profound, like, I didn't want to listen, but I wanted to listen. It's kind of like when you get negative feedback, or someone says to you, I heard that you, or, someone said that you. And if it's not positive, it is so, like, such a deep cut. And my response as a child was, one, I shut down on the inside and I smile on the outside, right? And I also believe that I don't need you. Fork you and the horse you rode in on. How dare you? And I can live on my own without you, and anybody for that matter. And I don't need you. I don't want you. And yeah, certainly vulnerability is a bad word. Like, it's like that P word, patience. I don't want to be vulnerable because I I don't know if some people say anger is the outward expression of sadness and
Mhm.
hurt, which in this case would apply, like it masks it, you know?
I've heard that anger is a secondary emotion, meaning that the primary emotions underneath it are a combination of hurt and betrayal.
Mm,
And then anger is that expression that comes from that blend of hurt and betrayal.
mm. So
Now,
it's attack before being attacked.
yeah, so that fork you, that fu reaction. I mean, I would, tell me if you agree. It's probably a defense mechanism, because when you feel cut down, it's a loss of power. It's a loss of control.
Mhm.
And for people like us that are achievement minded, like to have control over our lives, it's a quick way to regain control by using anger to say, well, I'm going to smush you out of my life like a cockroach. And some people, they deserve that. Some people aren't really that nice and don't deserve a place in your life. But I would venture that some of those people are probably still very good people, and they deserve a second chance, and etc.
Yeah, it's balance.
Yeah.
It's balance. Like I remember someone, a 10-year friendship. She said, "I've noticed you drop people really quickly."
Mm.
And it was hard to hear, but my defense was, well, what hurt me once, shame on you. Hurt me
Hmm.
twice, shame on me. I'm not going to stick around. I don't want to be a doormat or wall-to-wall carpet. Park it. So I'm not going to let you do something twice. So there is some value in that for those who stay too long and get walked on all the time. But I recognized her feedback as, you might want to, cut some other people some slack. When they make a mistake, they're not perfect. And I think it was because I still had as a goal of mine to be perfect. Like perfectionism was my soothing place, because I had an unconscious understanding that if I was perfect, I would be loved, because that
Mm.
was what was told to me, right? If you love me, you wouldn't, right?
And what's funny is you can be perfect in your own mind, but you know what? Like, you can't control how other people feel about you. And even if you achieve perceived perfection, and we're so hard on ourselves that is really hard to achieve, by the way. But even if you did get to that point, it might not mean diddly squat to the other person, because they might not value the things that you've worked so hard to be perfect at. It might not even be on their radar. And so, you can't do it for them. And if you're trying to do it for you, what is that pursuit of perfection trying to heal? And I think you just said that. You wanted to be perfect. It's almost like a shield against what other darts someone else might throw at you, so that you can go back and say, well, I have my house in order, so nothing you do can affect me. But do we want to have that shield? Don't we want to be affected by other people? Because that's what allows for this beautiful connection. But that also takes a tremendous amount of courage, which is also vulnerability. Um, you
Yeah.
know,
I can't be the pursuit of perfection is a dis-ease with life. That's
mhm,
one of my formulas, because you
mhm.
cannot be perfect, because you cannot control everything. So I'm a recovering control freak. Because of that, I realized that no matter if I did 99 acts as a great mom, if I over screamed one time, that just proved I was a horrible mom, which was
Mm.
stupid, because 99 or 88% of the time I was a good mom. But perfectionism does not allow you to credit yourself with anything good, because you're always focused on that time you effed up. Or,
Yeah.
and it's if you think, and I did this right up until honestly like 10 years ago, and I use oil of Olay, but let me tell you, decades of my life were still thinking that I could be perfect. And it's a horrible every day, because you're constantly looking, what do they think? I used to remember the agony of doing any kind of presentation, and I was desperately looking for approval. And if someone had indigestion, I saw that as disapproval because they weren't smiling at me, which is, that MSU University going to making shiitake up about every situation because you couldn't control people's reactions. So I'm so glad I don't live like that most of the time.
It's funny. I'm going to give another example just in case it helps our listeners relate. My mom is a recovering perfectionist. She ended up having a really good relationship with her mother in the end, but her mother would say stuff like, "You were an accident. I never wanted a child." And so she thought that by being perfect, she could attain that love, and that transferred into her romantic relationships, because when she and my father ended up not working out, she set herself up for the biggest fall, because she was so like, I am so perfect in all these ways, but it wasn't enough. And it wasn't enough, not because she wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because they just weren't compatible. And so the idea is that perfectionism can move you away from reality. Like, you have to bounce perfectionism, until you can recover from it, against reality. For example, to say like, "Oh, I shouted at my child once, I'm a terrible mother." Well, that's not very realistic, because human nature is to slip up, to have outbursts. It's just what happens. But I think real perfection in that is you yell at your child, and then you catch your breath, you come back and you say, "Honey, I am so sorry. I love you to death. Mommy's not perfect. Please forgive me."
Not to death.
That's perfect though. You know what I mean? Because it's how you deal with it when you step in it. It's how you deal with it that I think actually makes you more perfect than this idea of trying to be robotically inhuman, because perfectionism makes you robotically inhuman.
Yeah. And I used to hate that when people would say, it's actually nice to see you F up because it makes you more human and more, I feel better about, being able to get close to you. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want that. I'd rather have you put me on a pedestal than think that you can approach me, which is effed up. But we're going to talk more about that when we come back. We're going to take a quick break for news, weather, and traffic, and the sponsors of this show. So we'll be back in 2 and 2. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Well, she has been dubbed the Asian Oprah, and she just wants all of us to be happy.
Dr. Marissa, aka the Asian Oprah, says the most important thing you can choose is choosing to be happy.
You are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa.
That's the idea for Dr. Marissa Pay's new book called 8 Ways to Be Happy.
Many of us say, I am my own worst critic. Nobody's harder on me than I am. And my response to that is, stop it! Why are you doing that to yourself? You have to be your biggest fan, because if you can't at the end of the day say, I did a good job, who is? We don't have to constantly be angry at the things that are wrong. Why don't we choose to be happy about things that are right? We have the choice. That's our muscle. And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Hi, everybody. So today we are talking about perfectionism right now as it relates to vulnerability. And a lot of people are reluctant to start on a health and fitness and wellness journey because they feel like, oh, I'm not ready to start because I am so in terrible shape. And, it's really about meeting yourself where you're at and allowing a good trainer to meet you there too. And it's about being better tomorrow than you are today. So I encourage everybody to just get started. Life is all about relationships, and we always have to deal with people and everything that we do, except your health and your fitness is yours. And that is a relationship that you have with yourself. So I encourage everybody to abandon perfectionism and say, I accept where I'm at and I'm eager to get better. And if that sounds like an approach you want to take, I encourage you to hit me up at Action Man Fitness on Instagram. DM me that you're from the Dr. Marissa show. And the first session is on me to talk about your goals and how we can help you get there. So let's get started.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. Home to the Asian Oprah, number one talk in the IE. Thank you very much. AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, and of course my YouTube TV channel, where if you free subscribe and give me the finger, this one, not the other one, you'll get an alert every weekday morning to tune in to a show about hope and happiness. And today is Friday. That means it's time for Straight Talk with myself and
James Hawthorn.
And we're talking about vulnerability. Not one of my favorite words, and we're going to work on that now. It's second half of the show. We're going to talk about solution and how vulnerability can be correlated with more happiness. James, take it away.
Yes. Before we jump right into solutions, I want to put a wrinkle in the plot. So I'm not, I need to work on my vulnerability. I know that. But a friend called me out recently and said, James, I think you give people too many chances. You're too forgiving. You're my most, one of the most loyal people I know, but I think maybe to your detriment. And we were at poker night and having a discussion about somebody that is adjacent to our group that, they don't particularly like all that much. And I said, well, there's this, that, he's not that bad. You got to give him, some grace for dealing with his stuff. And he was trying to say, James, you might be a little bit too much this way. And so what's funny is I know that I need to work on my giving people my heart, but there's a difference. I think I'm really good at giving people a lot of chances and looking for the good in people, but I don't think I'm good at fully trusting them. And so I think it's impossible to talk about vulnerability without trust. And when my high school friend yesterday called me out for losing the faith, he says, I understand you got issues with, really trusting. And I think that might be one of the core things to work on to get better at being vulnerable and allowing people to have access to my heart. And he went back to what he learned doing this Hoffman experience. And when I look at it, I'm going to put the moose on the table here, because part of finding the solution is doing, the work on yourself. And I look at the model I had. I have great parents. I love them to death. They were absolutely wonderful with me as parents, but they were not good together. And I looked at a relationship that was devoid of really love, intimacy. And I looked at that, and I think subconsciously I'm processing that, as a child that was becoming a man, and looking at that and going, well, geez, if my parents can't even do it, what chance does anybody have? And that's a silly thing to say, but when that's the model that you see day in and day out, you go, is this, it's obviously not healthy and good, but is this something that is unattainable? Mm-hmm. Is this, the way that they hurt each other emotionally? Is this, something that I need to watch out for and protect myself against? And I think maybe that is something that put a shield up for me. And while I might give people lots of chances and I'll welcome them into my life, I don't welcome them into my heart. And I think trust is something that I need to work on. And I think a piece of that is to remind myself that, and I think this is true for all people, scientific studies show, I was a psych major, we learned this, people underestimate their ability to adapt. We think that getting our heart broke is the worst thing in the world, but the worst thing in the world is to never give your heart to anybody at all, I think, because then you never, I think it prevents you from having the closest, most intimate, most loving connection and relationship possible. And you know, you have to, if your gut tells you that somebody's bad and is going to burn you, sure. But if that's your default state, not so good. And I think that I have to trust my ability to adapt, that if I do get my heart broken, I'll be okay. I'll get through it eventually. It might be painful, but so what? Life is painful whether you try or not, you know, to prevent pain. It's going to happen because we are, guess what, folks? We are not in control. We are all just bouncing around out there in this barely controlled chaos. You're going to get hurt. So why not put yourself out there for the chance of the greatest success and love in relationships? Because you're going to get hurt anyway. So why not open yourself up to, you know, what's possible? And I really want to remind myself to be bold, to walk forward into that uncertainty, have a little more faith, practice more trust, and just see what happens, and trust that I'll be okay, even if the worst happens.
Well, nobody can really break your heart. I mean, this is something that I do in my happiness coaching. When I look back at myself and how I felt like my heart was broken, nobody can really break your heart. They can bruise it, right? And you can keep poking at it, right? Or let it get infected, and then it'll do a little more damage, but nobody really, and I hold that BS, that belief system. Do I have proof of it? No, but it makes me feel better about the times when it does get bruised. Because if you carry the BS, the belief system, like one of my clients who was 43, and he said, I know that I have horrible relationships because I'm afraid of getting my heart broken again. And I go, when was that? When I was 18. So for 30 years, I'm going to protect myself from any benefit of a relationship because I'm afraid that I'm going to feel the same way. Well, how did you feel then? I cried all the time. I got into a real depression. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to get out of bed. And it's like, okay, so you felt those things. Are you dead now? No. Have you been able to, in 30 years, accomplish anything that you are happy with? Yes, I have. So is it possible that that bruising, if you allow yourself to now be open enough for that relationship, is it possible just to experiment? Like, what can I get that is happy making in a relationship? Oh yeah, companionship, and it's a lot more fun. You know, when I go to a movie, I can go to a movie by myself, I can eat by myself, but if I'm with someone, especially at a movie, and I can laugh with them together, it does enhance what, right? Joy doubles, you know, sorrow is halved. And that I tell that to myself all the time when I have the voice say, F you, I can live on a desert island. I really don't want to be hurt. And then going back to your comments about your parents, I think we just need to do a little better than our parents. Parents aren't perfect. They got it from their parents. I really embrace that, because otherwise I'm going to be so critical of myself. And when things are not good between my daughter and I, my older daughter and I are like just made out of the same cloth. And so we have more conflict than not. And it really does. It's a good teaching ground, because I want to do what my mom used to do, which is cut her off and not talk to her for 8 years. But I know that that is not the you know, doing a little better than so, you know, I've gotten to the point with her where it's like, I love you and that will never change. But there are times when we're just better off not trying to communicate because it doesn't get better, it gets worse. So no, understanding that and not beating myself up for being a bad mom, this is just one little step better. But I do know that I hate conflict so much. That is why I'm not vulnerable, because vulnerability takes the courage to work through differences and misunderstandings, which I'm not real good at, because I'd rather not look at you, not have to deal with it and move on to the next situation than work through that conflict and come out the other side. Thank you for that thumbs up on that. It's not easy. Arlene Hilton, Reverend Arlene Hilton, is a friend of mine from Agape, and she calls them carefrontations. If you care about that person, it is worth trying to work through what you had with your childhood guy friend. That, it is worth it. But the courage that it takes to open yourself up and just allow for that's the work. And I don't know necessarily if I will ever get to the point where I am good at it, but I give myself a little compassion, because when I was a kid, screaming and yelling was common.
Yes.
I learned how to tune it out. In fact, when I don't listen fully, when people are talking and I think that they're volatile, I don't even hear what they're saying, because I've learned how to tune that out. That's that habit, that adaptive habit you talked about earlier, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So self-awareness, number one, we're both doing it. Both my co-host and I are being very vulnerable about living out loud for you. So hopefully you can identify and take my advice. I'm not using it. I can't guarantee that I'll be better at this, but at least I'm aware of it.
I want to expand on that idea of tuning things out. And, that's not necessarily, I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a necessary thing. It's a survival instinct. And my parents would scream at each other all the time because they're both very emotional, type A people, and they would scream. And I would always say, you know what, that's about them. That's not about me. And while I was right, and that's a healthy perspective to take, it doesn't mean that I'm not absorbing that model and saying, oh, you go to anger when you're upset. This is what your subconscious is absorbing this, and it's shaping the chances you're willing to take, the risks that you take, and so tuning it out is how I would survive. But it certainly didn't allow me to, thrive. And then one thing that I also want to talk about is examine what you think you know. Because one thing that affected me deeply is how emotionally devastated. My mom was almost like dysfunctional because she was so upset with the crumbling of the relationship with my father. And I think that was amplified by her, perfectionism, and seeing that it didn't matter at the end of the day when it comes to compatibility. You can't beat compatibility. You either are or you aren't. And she was so distraught and devastated. And I have to remind myself, that's not the way that it is. I am not my mom. I'm not wired the same way. I don't process emotions that way, and I'm not a perfectionist. So I have to remind my subconscious that if I get my heart broken, I'm not going to be like my mom, because that's just not me. And I need to remind myself that what I knew as a child and know is not the reality of what that experience is going to be like for me. So I think it's important to examine what you think you know, or even at the subconscious level, what are things that you absorbed that are maybe impacting your behavior, and just call it out for BS when it's not, real. If you say, is this a fear-based response, or is it based in actual fact and truth about who I am? I think that it's important when you do the work to become more vulnerable. You lay out all the things that you think you know, or the things that you think have maybe shaped you subconsciously.
Yeah. And I don't even think that, I think heartbroken is one of those BS belief systems
Right.
that continues our fear of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. So what I like to do, in addition to calling it heart bruising, is when a relationship doesn't work out, it has no reflection on that person being bad or you being bad. It just wasn't a match. And that belief system for me allows me to, recover, right? And heal from things that don't match. Now, if that expectation, I think what gets in my way in relationships is, especially with swiping, they have to have all of the things that match, and there's no room for growth because I want you fully baked. I don't want to grow with you. I want it perfect, matching, which is also completely a BS, a belief system that is unrealistic. So what's realistic is someone meets my 80%, and I'm talking to myself now. So if they meet the 80%, that's amazing. And that we can have fun together doing things that we enjoy doing together, and having that joy doubled and sorrow halved. If I can get to that point in my head, I probably could have a good relationship. But because I still hold that, I want to match perfect before I have a relationship, that's what's keeping me from having a relationship.
See, that's you've done some of the work to at least be aware of that, which is great. The courage piece, finding the courage, right? Because that's really what it comes down to, that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And sometimes it's hard to do that with other people because other people are unpredictable, sometimes irrational, and definitely emotional. And that's very scary, to just give your heart and say, do what you will, I'll be okay. I mean, that takes a lot of courage to truly do that, and allow yourself to go through the roller coaster of emotions. Other people they don't have to steal your joy, but other people should affect you, because that is, we need each other. And if we're empathetic and caring, we want to be affected by other people. That's why we go to the movies. We go to watch people getting through this thing called life together. And, when we, there's a reason I'm going to go into this. When we watch people, when we watch movies, we're forgetting that we're watching actors. So what do those actors have to do to create a world for us that allows us to get lost in the story? They have to get their own emotions and imagination involved. And part of my acting training with the Meisner training was something called emotional preparation. And it really just opens you up. And I remember that after I learned that, for a good solid year, everything everybody said and did, I was so hyper sensitive to it. And not always in a good or in a bad way, sometimes in a good way. I would be delighted by things that I would often ignore because my blockers or shields were up. And I just felt so alive. Sometimes it hurt. Sometimes it felt great. But darn it, I was alive. And I want to live my most, you talk about living your happiest life. I want to live my most alive life. I don't want to, go through it like an abused dog from the shelter that is afraid to interact with other dogs. It's wary of other people. And our subconscious is kind of operates at the level of pretty much a dog's intelligence, by the way. That's not opinion. That's the level of subconscious processing. So that's why we can't let that subconscious run the ship. It's hard.
So balance. I always come back to balance because that is my true brand. It's the first before happiness, because anything either extreme is not necessarily healthy. So vulnerability, again, you don't want to live your life so out loud, is oversharing with everybody, asking everybody what they think of you, that is crazy making. But again, the other extreme of not being known. So the perfectionism tie is so strong, because I alluded to that. I'd rather have someone put me on a pedestal than to know that I'm not perfect. That's huge there, to say, well, I know where that's coming from. To be perfect is to be loved, right? So I don't have any, well, that's not true. I have to focus on relationships where people do know me for all that I am. I've shared my foilables. They know I'm not perfect and they still love me. So my bonus mom who just passed was one of those. My bonus dad who's 95, he's still here. He's like that. My, 28-year friendship with Mary, she's an example of that. My girlfriend of 16 years, Anne-Marie, she's of that. My co-hosts to some extent are like that. So instead of focusing on my husband who bruised me badly, right? Financially, emotionally, didn't want to have intimate relationships with me, rejected me at every turn, a mom like that who just passed, who nothing I could do was good enough for her. So if my work is to stop looking at them as evidence of why I shouldn't be vulnerable, and to look at the people who I mentioned first, who are proof that I can be loved unconditionally, even as I am imperfectly. That's my work.
Yes, I think allowing people to affect you because, don't look at it as I have to get over what happened in order to do this. Instead, frame it as I want to live my most alive life. I want to experience everything. I want to know what it is to be a human on this journey. And I want that so badly that I'm going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm going to tie this in to my final thought since we've got about 3 minutes left. And if doing that seems daunting or overwhelming, or you're not sure how to start, I think it's okay to start with this idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in a situation that is more in a vacuum where you do have more control. For example, I was dissatisfied with a lot of things in my life when I was 30 and I needed a win. So I said, I'm going to do an Ironman triathlon. And it was the most grueling thing. I have never experienced something so daunting to get to that finish line. I learned a lot of things about myself. I learned about how to deal with tremendous amount of discomfort and pain. And on the other side of that, it's like once you've turned on the light, you can't turn on the dark. I saw what I was capable of. And I grew as a human being. And that I take with me 10 years later, whenever I'm having a tough time or whenever I'm afraid to really go for it. I remember how good it felt. For weeks, for months after I crossed that finish line, and the juice was worth the squeeze. Fresh squeezed OJ. Hey, if it's fresh and you want to drink that fresh juice, it's going to squeeze. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable. And so sometimes it's okay to start with something that is in your control. Get that win, get that experience of being uncomfortable. And then once you do that, you're telling your subconscious through your behavior that you don't have to be scared anymore. And that might be a stepping stone to allowing other people in and to affect you.
Absolutely. My final word is I will attempt to be more vulnerable with my swiping.
Hey, that's a good start.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. This has been another scintillating and revealing and vulnerable episodes of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind, NBC News Radio, and my YouTube TV channel. Please subscribe. Thank you so much. My numbers are incredible. The impressions of 3.95 million now. Thank you so much for that. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. James, take it out.
Have the best weekend ever, everyone.
See you Monday.